Conference will now be recorded.
Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order concerning imposition on strict limitations of the number of people that may gather in one place, meetings in the town of Upton are being conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. So we have a couple of items on the agenda this evening. We have to review the meeting and approval of previous meeting minutes from March 10th and March 16th. We have no invited guests this evening that I'm aware of. And we have a couple of discussion items, discussion of the annual town meeting warrant articles. Also review and vote on the COVID trust fund policy and discuss funding request for Upton neighbor to neighbor. And also discuss the town meeting and town election dates. We have recognition, the town manager's report, new business, and several look ahead topics. So at this point, I will ask my colleagues regarding agenda item 2.0, approval of previous meeting minutes. Have you both had some time to review March 10th and March 16th? And does everything look okay?
Yes.
That looks good to me. So I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes for March 10th and March 16th as written. Brett Simus, aye.
Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Stephen Metellian, aye. Sandra, you can make that unanimous action.
Does he need to?
Very good. On to discussion items. Item 4.1, discussion on the annual town meeting warrant. So we have an updated warrant from KP Law. I just spent some time reviewing everything. I guess we can quickly, I'll kind of quickly read the article number. And if there's anything, any question, Maureen or Brett, that you may have regarding the article, please ask me to hold it. Otherwise, I'll just kind of briefly move on to the next one. Does that sound agreeable to all?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we've got Article 1, that's pretty straightforward. Article 2A is the override question, $1.229 million. Article 2B is a housekeeping article. Article 3 is the wastewater enterprise funds. Article 4, maybe that was water. Did I read that? I'm sorry, water was Article 3. Article 4 is wastewater. Article 5 is setting up all our revolving funds. Article 6, setting up a fund for the PEG access and cable related funds. Article 8 is authorizing us to expend roadway money. Article 9, I'd like to just spend a minute here if we can. Derek, has anything changed, or is this at this point in time, are we still looking at this as a raise and appropriate?
Yeah, this article is, as we all know, is our roads article for $562,000. This would be, as in previous years, a raise and appropriate.
Okay. I guess my only thoughts on this is, with the override question, this is another raise and appropriate article. The two together would have a substantial impact, I feel, on our tax rate moving forward. I'm thinking this may be best to hold off on this one till November. So I don't know if Maureen or Brett, if you have any thoughts on that. My underlying feeling is we have somewhere around 30 articles. And, of course, the budget itself has a lot of, there will be some questions, I'm sure. There's a lot of increases in spending in our operational budget. And of course, I'm sure there'll be some discussion regarding the override, some of the other questions, perhaps, some of the changes regarding our bylaws, zoning, things of that nature. So does anybody have any thoughts? Maureen, I think I see your hand in the air.
Yes, I'd like to put this article forward. This is for our infrastructure of the town, that we've been on a program that has benefited the town very much. And to take away this money or not let the people vote for what they want to do, I think would be a detriment to the town.
Well, I agree. I'm not suggesting that we take the article away. I'm just suggesting that we put it off till November. We do, many times we address capital in November, and we've had plenty of seasons where we will miss the paving season and double up the following summer. So I don't think there's any harm in addressing this in November. But Brett, I guess it would now be your decision.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely mindful of the costs of the override. This has been a pretty standard expense that the town's incurred, that's always gone through town meeting without almost any discussion. And I think the reason for that is everybody is comfortable with investing in roads. Of all the things that the local government spend money on, obviously roads is something that's most visible to people. It has no impact in terms of their day-to-day lives, one could argue. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from people happy with the investments that we're making, and that's in addition to the folks at town meeting supporting these articles. I don't see any benefit to putting it off until November. I think it should be a pretty quick conversation. I don't expect it to be controversial at all. My guess is that people want this. Certainly, I've never heard of anybody or spoken to anybody that's had any concerns with the money we spend on the roads here. So I would support in keeping it on this spring warrant, as we always do.
Yeah, I think the only difference is we may have the opportunity in November to pay out of free cash. I think that's really ultimately where I'm going with this. If we can pay for it out of free cash, it's not a raise and appropriate. And if we roll to November with $1.5 million to $2 million in free cash, we're going to kind of feel foolish raising and appropriating this money now.
This is already a part of the budget process that we have come up with, and we are balanced except for the 1.2 million for the school, and that's decided on the override. I still would like to see this article maintained on the annual town meeting warrant and let the voters decide.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Brett, you feel the same way?
The other thing I would just add is that, the notion of paying this from free cash is something that applies every single year. And this year isn't different, right? We've had free cash that could cover this part of the budget for a long time, but there's a conscious decision made to raise and appropriate the money to pay for these roads. And I think that that's how people expect to pay for their roads, not through free cash, because it's an annual expense. It's an annual investment in infrastructure. So I don't support changing how we present this to the voters.
Okay. On to Article 10.
Can we make a motion to keep this on the warrant?
I think it already is. Again, I was not, just so you understand, Maureen, I wasn't looking to remove it. I was looking to move it to November in hopes of not having large raise and appropriates. Multiple large raise and appropriates is what I'm trying to avoid. But again, if you two are in agreement, that's fine. We'll just move on to
Derek, could I ask Derek a question? Should we vote to leave this article on the town meeting warrant, or do we not have to?
I think you could take the entire warrant as a slate at the end.
Okay.
Okay.
We can move on.
I would, Selectman Doral, I would recommend that if if there's agreement, if there's a majority that wants to remove something, specifically one article, I would recommend that you would hold that article, vote to remove that article, and then take the remaining ones as a slate.
Thank you.
Okay. Article 10,
Chairman, may I
do we have any updates from Dennis Westgate regarding the snow and ice deficit this year?
Yes, so after the last storm, Dennis has stated that all invoices were paid. He said that the salt shed was near top, so not totally full, but as full as it could be at this time. And he is projecting a surplus of approximately $8,000.
A surplus of 8,000, meaning under what we spent, under our appropriated number?
Yeah, so we have today approximately $8,000 remaining in the account. So we haven't started to draw down in the deficit.
Okay. Then I think it would make sense to remove this article.
My only hesitation is that we have been known to have April storms, and it's something that if we don't have any additional storms prior to execution, we definitely would withdraw. But do we want to withdraw it tonight, or do we want to hold for the date of execution? Which I would have, if we don't move the budget from now to the date of execution, I'll already have it withdrawn, knowing that's going to be your intention to withdraw.
Okay. Let's see, we're at April 7th. I think the weather's looking clear the next week, but I suppose you don't know past the 14th or 15th what the weather is going to be doing at that point. Maureen,
I would not want to withdraw this. I mean, I've seen major storms in April and I've seen major storms in May.
okay. I think your video screen is locked, by the way.
No, I'm on.
Okay, but we can't see you moving. Your hand is kind of blocking your face, just so you know.
I don't even have my hand up to my face.
I can actually, Steve, you look more frozen to me than Maureen does. I don't know. Derek, is Steve
Okay.
frozen to you?
Maureen looks good.
Yes, Steve is frozen to me.
Yeah. So
Okay, I'm moving around. It's not showing up.
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, actually, it looks like a couple of the screens, Paul's screen, Kelly, and Maureen are all frozen on my side. Okay.
Well, you're the only one that's frozen, Steve.
Let's see this. All right. How about now? Anything different?
No, I can't see you at all, Steve.
I mean, as long as we can hear you, we're probably okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So in any event, we're 8,000 to the good. The article reads 200,000. What are your thoughts? Maureen, you said you want to leave it on for now. And Brett, what are you thinking?
I mean, I think it's easy enough to just withdraw it before we execute. The idea is, so just to be clear, if we do that, it won't show up, right? Versus us, because I feel like if it's there, it gets distracting to people, even if we know when we get to the article, we're going to withdraw it. So would it be sort of struck from the warrant that gets published that people get at town meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, as long as that happens, so it's not a distraction, I'm fine with taking it off later. What do you think, Steve? Is that, I mean, because I could go either way. I don't think we're going to get any more snow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's my concern is I just want to try to streamline the warrant as much as we can.
Yeah.
And again, I agree with you in the fact that if it appears there, it's a distraction. People see it, people see that 200,000 number and they get very nervous.
Right.
So that's the only thing that, the only reason I was thinking we would draw it now. But as long as we can wipe it clean, come, yeah, of course, we don't know at this point when we'll be executing the warrant. So I suppose, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, but I would totally agree with you. If we couldn't get it off for any reason, then I would want to remove it now. But it sounds like that's not the issue, so we should be okay.
It just so this is just tonight was just the last time we had a conversation about the override. We didn't have the warrant on there as a discussion point, and there were a lot of conversations made about the transition plan and other things. So tonight's discussion is really to try to clean up as much as we can, but certainly not going to execute the warrant. So at our next meeting, if we decide to execute the warrant, then I know your intention for Article 10, and I'm also working with Dennis on the budget. So if the budget does not change, I guarantee you Article 10 will be, for all intents and purposes, withdrawn. I will just need your final vote to formally confirm that intention.
Right.
Okay.
In Mr. Chairman, I don't want to go backwards, but I do want to just ask for your perspective on the roads article, because if we vote on, and I know we're not going to do it tonight, but if we approve the entire warrant, that's not going to give you the opportunity to go on record if you don't support that article. So I just wanted to make sure you were comfortable with that. We don't even have to talk about it now, but just think about that if we want to go through each article so that we can each be on record about our vote for each of these. Just something for you to think about. I'm fine either way because it's not my vote. So I just wanted to raise that because I thought of it.
Okay. I mean, I think at this point, the way, obviously, we're going to be behind schedule quite a bit with this pandemic with COVID-19. I think next time that we meet and we discuss the warrant as a whole, then, we can, I guess, if we have any questions or comments we want to make it regarding any one article. Again, I'm not suggesting we eliminate the article. I'm just, when we're in a better cash position, I would prefer to pay for it out of free cash. It's always been my recollection that's how we paid for it. But again, we're at a very weak free cash position. You may not be aware, but I had discussion with Derek earlier. We just happen to be at a very weak free cash position because of the way we spent in November. So typically right now, rolling into the annual town meeting, it's always been my experience and my recollection, we've always had somewhere north of $1 million to spend. So we're just, again, we're at a short from a cash perspective, or free cash perspective, I should say. But we'll just let that go for now, and we'll move along. Article 12A is CPA money. 12B, again, another CPA question. 12C is regarding Recreation Master Plan redesign of the Leland Field. 12B is regarding the roof at the Maplewood Cemetery, roof and ceiling. 13 is, this is each year we do this for Board of Assessors recertification work. Article 15, $10,000 for utility appraiser. Article 16, this is something, I'll stop here for just a minute. I think when we went over the last 2 times we went over the warrant and the draft warrant, this article was not actually in front of us. At least I don't recall us looking at it or discussing it at all. So I guess I'll just ask Maureen and Brett, have you had a chance to read it over, and do you have any questions regarding it?
I haven't had a chance to read over this one.
Okay. It's something, I guess, for those who are listening to the meeting, we've had some problems in the past regarding common driveways and how many homes can be on a common driveway. So this is an article that's being put forth as a zoning bylaw change. I like it. I support the article. I think there's a lot of good reasons for it. But also, I think, based on what I feel people are looking for in town, I think this is a good article.
I'd have to agree, Steve. I'm not in favor of common driveways.
Yeah, I think when you get, it allows for 2 homes on a common driveway. But I believe when you get past that, really at that point, you should act and build according to a subdivision, not a common driveway.
I'll agree.
So,
Do we have the language of this somewhere? It sounds like, Steve, you've seen it, but I perhaps have missed it.
there's a link on the, I'm not sure if the link is on the website or if it's in our emails.
Okay, so,
It's in front of you. The document that Kelly is holding up is everything with the underline are additions to the existing common driveway bylaw. And if Kelly were to scroll down just a little bit more, there's another paragraph that further provides detail to the proposal. The planning board has been working with Central Mass Regional Planning Commission for the past, say, 6-7 months on amending the existing common driveway bylaw, and that's what's in front of you this evening. They plan to hold a public hearing, which is required by law. They have to hold a public hearing anytime they change the zoning bylaw. That public hearing is slated for the end of April.
Okay. I thought section 9 had some revisions in it as well, but is that exactly as it has been, Derek?
To my knowledge, this was submitted to me by the planning board, so this is submitted it as written.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so moving on to Article 18. This is the article for fire radios, 159,000. Article 19 is turnout gear. Article 20 is repairing the HVAC system on the fire station roof. Article 21. This was something we had discussed regarding trying to expand the use of senior tax relief policy. Derek, it looks like the description is a little bit short. It doesn't actually go into, is that how KP wanted to present this?
I'm working with KP on this. This was the most recent edition. Give me 1 second, one from my notes. According to my notes, the board voted to add sections 42 and 43 to what the town has already accepted other statutes.
Okay.
Am I wrong in saying that?
No, actually, you're correct.
Yeah, if I can interrupt, these were the two, I think it was one for spouses of police officers killed in the line of duty, and then there was another one that we have realized we haven't accepted. So Tracy and I are going to look at the numbers on it tomorrow to make sure we have everything exact. But these are just 2 additional exemptions that we can make available to the public.
Kelly, were you ever able to find out, I think that the income levels or the asset levels were very, very low on that exemption. And I know that when Tracy gave her presentation, she had said that there's a way to have that where there's a COLA adjustment in there. But I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how far behind, what are the current limits for those? And I don't have them in front of me. I want to say it was maybe 24 and 32.
I don't know the limits off the top of my head. I do know that because we had waited so long to accept another area of the law, I don't think we did it until the last couple of years. We are behind on when it comes to income. The income is lower than other residents, but I think what she stated is she would check to see if there was a way that we could up it more, but I don't think there is at this point. So I will double check with her to make sure on that. But other than that, we should be good. Yeah, we'll double check it, and then we'll make sure that we add the two relief programs that we're referencing in Article 21.
Okay. I mean, my only concern is it seems like we're not going to be able to address the citizens that we're trying to help with this. So I was kind of hoping that there would be a way that we could make, the two clauses that we're adding will be helpful, but it's not going to help our aging elderly population is my only concern.
Unfortunately, I think we're limited a little bit to Mass General Law. So again, we will double check that, but I believe she stated that there wasn't a way to do it. It was just going to be based on COLA, based on how, it just took us so long to accept it to be able to adjust the figures. So we are going to be a little bit behind.
Okay.
So a couple things I would offer, if I may. One is for Article 21, it may be beneficial to include what this is in some regular language, because I fear that if people see something labeled tax relief, that they're going to feel like it's some sort of welfare program, or it's a tax relief program, or who's paying for it, or who is it for, because it doesn't say who it's for. So I think it would be helpful if people knew who it was for. And then, Steve, we should have a separate conversation or put on a future agenda a follow-up discussion on all of this, because I agree with you. We need to explore if there's more we can do for this population, outside of this warrant and these two MGLs.
Right.
I would agree with Brett on that.
Okay. Yep. Like I say, because the only thing that I'm thinking is if there were a way to make an adjustment with those income or asset levels, we should do it in all one article. We could amend whatever clauses and chapters we feel are deficient and also accept 42 and 43. So if you want to put a little more work into this, here's an article I would, I'm okay if you want to push this off till November, or we can certainly address it in May. Or whatever we're able to meet, I should say.
I think what Kelly is saying, that this is all controlled by the Mass General Law, actually. We can't change the general law unless you file legislation.
Correct. And because this wasn't, the previous Board of Assessors did not bring this up sooner.
Right.
The community is a little bit behind on the income because we can only increase it by the COLA amount every year.
Which is what, 2.5%, Kelly?
I think they figure that out every year. They give us an advisement on what the amount is every year. So
Okay.
I think it's different. I don't think it's a certain percent every year.
Okay.
It might be based on the CPI. I recall a conversation with Bill Taylor, and he did tell me that the Board of Assessors had to have a conversation at some point about creating a policy for a senior tax relief program, and they hadn't truly had that conversation as of yet. So do you recall that, about creating a policy on senior tax relief?
Yeah, that would be for the hardship for exemption, which based on Mass General Law, it's really going to be like poverty, age, and 3 criterias that someone would have to meet to even apply for a hardship exemption. And then even then, we need to set the policies on what we would consider to be the age, what we would consider to be the income level. We've never been presented with a hardship exemption, so policies have never been established for the town.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we can move on for now. Article 22 is the forklift. Article 25 is a replacement turf truck. Article 26, $280,000 for the funding of the Water Division's capital investment program. Derek, just a quick question on this one. Is this a separate project, or is this something that is in addition to, in the earlier presentation, I think it's Article 4, they have $100,000 plugged in for capital outlay? Would this be additional dollars in addition to that 100,000?
Right, yeah, this specifically is for the first phase of implementing the tie and bond infrastructure analysis project.
All right. And is it water right now that's going to be 100% on the users? Or is it wastewater?
Wastewater, I would say it's not a full 100%, but it's, off the top of my head, it's, I think the only share by the town that's in the general side is about $8,000. So it's pretty close to 100%. The water side has certainly a little bit further to go.
Okay. All right. And Article 27 is wastewater, $450,000. Is there any one particular project that will be addressed with this one? Do you know?
I'm not exactly certain on this one, but I do know the wastewater treatment plant is probably the place they're going to start first. There are a number of upgrades that have to take place soon. The wastewater treatment plant is falling out of compliance with the Department of Environmental Protection. So I know that is one of the top priorities in phase 1 of the tie and bond assessment.
Okay. Very good. Article 28. The water main replacement. This is regarding the dollars that it looks like they were out or had been bonded, but we had never spent.
Right.
So this is, yeah. I think we discussed this at length at one of the meetings. Article 29, $13,000 for software. Article 30 is regarding the change in the treasurer collector's position. Article 32, this is a change to the Town Managers Act. Article 33 is regarding the change in the election date. And Article 34 is the posting. And Article 36 is accepting a road as a town accepted road. Okay. That's all I have. Maureen, Brett, everything look okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think we don't need any further action at this point until we actually execute the warrant. So we'll move on to discussion item 4.2, review and vote on the COVID trust fund policy. Derek, could you take a minute and speak to this?
Sure. So as I presented at last week's meeting, there's been a lot of work by a number of town officials and a number of our community partners. In particular, the Bloomer Girls, the Upton Men's Club, the United Parish, and St. Gabriel's Parish have all come together to try to support those individuals that have been affected because of the coronavirus. So the policy that's in front of you this evening, I had taken back a number of comments from last week, in particular, to include emotional wellness as part of one of the services we would be offering through this program. So this policy outlines the process in which the program will exist and in which who will direct the program, which would be the Director of Elder and Social Services, and then most importantly, how resources will be appropriated through the Board of Selectmen, and then ultimately how those resources will be reported on and evaluated.
And if I may add, Derek, I've received a lot of really good response to this. People in the community, I read a lot on social media, the few people that I've talked to on the phone, even though they themselves may not be in need of this help, I think it's very reassuring to know that the community leaders are willing to, put ourselves out there and try to help the people if we're able to do so. So very good job by all parties involved. Brett and Maureen, do you have any comments or any questions regarding the policy?
I just thought, I went over the policy. I think it looks great.
I agree. This is what we've been talking about. I think it's fantastic, and appreciate the time and effort that Derek, you, and several others have put into, creating not just this document, but the whole program. So it's really a wonderful testament to your leadership.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. I will take a motion.
So I make a motion that we approve the COVID Trust Fund policy as written. Brett Simus, aye.
Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Stephen Metellian, aye. Sandra, you can make that unanimous action. Okay, discussion item 4.3, discuss funding request for Upton neighbor to neighbor. So this discussion really goes hand in hand with the COVID Trust Fund policy. The board will discuss, or needs to discuss, appropriating some money out of the trust fund so that it can then be dispersed through Janus using the COVID Trust Fund policy. So we've been meeting fairly regularly. I don't know what's an appropriate number to kind of to start the program off. I'm not sure exactly. I know Janice and her staff has some requests that have come in. I'm just not sure from a monetary standpoint what would be an appropriate number to get the program rolling. So I guess once again, if I could defer to Derek and see what you think might be a good starting point, and then Maureen and Brett, please let me know what your thoughts are as well.
Sure. So thank you, because this is really the time I wanted to kind of talk more about the program known as Upton Neighbor to Neighbor. So as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, all those community partners have come together to try to leverage existing resources and provide that support. We had a team of individuals, and the Selectmen Simons has really kind of guided the group at these meetings. Have been weekly. Denise Smith has been involved, Bill McCormick, Alan Rosenfield, Janice Nowicki, Jessica Morrow, Matt Backhold from the library has been involved, and others. And so it's really a testament to, I guess, our community coming together. I don't know of very many other communities that have done what we are doing here in Upton to just, one, recognize the need, and then try to fill that need. So I appreciate the board's support in, allowing this to happen. This wouldn't happen without you three pushing us to make this happen. So just a quick update on where we are with the program. After a consensus agreement last Friday, we launched the program. Kelly and Sandy helped put this on the website, the press release, and push it through social media. And Chief DeFranco, who's on the team, he pushed it through the billboards. And I think this evening you may have heard the reverse 911 go out. And so we've, again, a number of other folks on the town hall staff just really jumped in the middle to try to do as much as we can to publicize and disseminate this information. And from all that, we were able to, up to now, receive probably a little less than a dozen requests. And, those requests, I really think I got to stop for just a minute here and just kind of talk about the requests that we've seen thus far, because these requests that we have received so far aren't from the typical folks in our networks, right? And that was my concern from day one, that, there's the churches are connected to a certain group of people, the Bloomer Girls are connected to a certain group of people, and so on and so forth. The COA is connected to another group of people. But what about all those other people that aren't keyed in on connected to one of those existing networks? And on day one, we found that there were a half a dozen folks that didn't really have a relationship with them. So by casting this very broad safety net, we were able to identify folks that are in need. Folks who had lost their jobs, looking for food assistance. We had one individual who, although he said financially he was all set, he was an older gentleman. He just couldn't go out. He was afraid to go out and grocery shop. So, just helping this person do the grocery shopping for him, the Upper Men's Club stepped up and they says, we'll do the grocery shopping, we'll deliver it. So we've already started to fill some needs up there. But one thing I can say that I think I learned most of all of this is that the emotional support, and again, the board mentioned this, and you want them included in the policy, but both the Bloomer Girls and Janice have told me that even with all the phone calls that they made, even the folks that said, I don't need assistance, I have everything that I need, they all thanked those individuals for reaching out and checking in on them to make sure that they're okay. So that came out as a lesson learned, that that's something we're going to continue to do each and every week, make sure that the folks that are on our list, that we continue to reach out to them and ensure that they have everything that they need during this time. So Janice is still going through this. She's kind of the quarterback in all this. She's receiving the information, she's triaging the information, she's connecting folks to the resources that she needs. Her and Jessica and Bernadette, they're all doing an awesome job with this. So to answer your question in a very long-winded way, I want to kind of set this up. I think it would be appropriate just at this time that we appropriate $5,000 from the Ristine B Trust Fund, and then the group, Janice in particular, can, when she receives those requests, can decide the appropriate use for these dollars and other resources. But right now we haven't received a lot of financial requests, but we don't know what the future holds. So just to have set aside amount of money that if she needs to, she can go ahead and support those individuals by providing financial assistance if and when necessary.
Okay. It's very, very interesting. It's interesting that so many people just need that, just really so much as just the ability for somebody to go and actually shop for them and bring them their groceries. That must be a tremendous help to so many people. But Brett, Maureen, is $5,000, if that is good with all. I think the only, it sounds fine with me. It's just a matter of, obviously we can continue to add to it as need be.
Yeah, I can tell you before Derek spoke, I was thinking it was going to be $20,000 or $25,000. So, I really feel like this money's burning a hole in our pockets, and I can't imagine a better time to try to find people that can take advantage of this. This account has over $700,000 in it, and we're trying to chip away at it in nickels and dimes. And I get it. I mean, we have to be very careful about how we distribute money. And if Derek and Janice say $5,000 is the number, great. But I would agree with you, Steve, that the key thing there is that, to me, that's like 1 to 3 people that you're going to be able to help. I've got to hope we can find more than that in the community that are looking for assistance, and maybe we need to talk about it in a different way or something to help people understand that this money is available. So yeah, 5,000 is fine for me. I'd rather make it more, but we can always do that going forward, I suppose.
Okay, and Maureen?
I would agree with Brett because we have, the next 2 weeks is the peak time for the COVID, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when they were saying, the news I've been watching is that between the 10th and the 20th are the peak days.
So this is going to go into June, and I can't believe that there wouldn't be anybody out there that would need something before then. And I would like to see a little more money.
Yeah, Steve, would you be okay, Steve, with, $10 or $15,000? And again, it's not going any faster or slower. It's just that we don't have to revisit it. And I think it also sends a message to Janice that use this money. Like I know her historically, she's been very sensitive about obviously how this money gets distributed and making recommendations to the board. But I think if we can show her and illustrate to her that we're serious about this, that we want to help people, we want to find people that are in need and get this money to them, that, making this number $10,000 or $15,000 certainly goes along those lines to share that support and enthusiasm with Janice.
Yes, I as well think that the virus is going to impact us for, definitely the next several months. So I just see it as kind of building blocks. I'm fine if you want to start at 10,000. And again, we can meet in 2 weeks and we can certainly appropriate more money if the program is, as you mentioned, we kind of know, or we hope we find that target. But perhaps with the other government programs, maybe at this point, people are being taken care of in a different way. I don't know that just yet. But yeah, I would support 10,000.
Okay, great. So I'll make a motion that we appropriate $10,000 for the Upton Neighbor to Neighbor program. Brett Simus, aye.
Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Steve Metallian, aye. Sandra, you can make that unanimous action?
Steve, I'm just going to bring to your attention that there's been some people in the chat notification. So you pretty much answered their questions, but they wanted to let you know that they thought $5,000 were low. So people that are listening in.
Okay. Kelly, in front of me, I can see the agenda, but I have it up on a different computer screen.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want, you can close that out.
Okay.
Because I can't see the chat box. And I think when that's minimized, I think I can actually see and hear everybody a little bit better.
Okay.
Okay. Is that,
Steve, just so you know, the chat box, you'd have to actually click on it in order to see it up at the top.
okay. I have the caption, I can see it, but I can't see if anybody's waiting in there.
Okay.
Or wants to make a comment. But in any event, that's good. At least we were able to answer their questions.
Steve, you also unfroze yourself.
Pardon?
You also unfroze yourself.
Well, that's another thing I was thinking. Because everybody was frozen. From what I was looking at, everybody at some point in time was frozen. So maybe when that agenda pops up in the bottom, it must lock the screen for some reason. Or at least on my computer. Crazy Apple. Okay, discussion item 4.4, discuss town meeting and election dates. I think we'll take these one at a time. I, of course, am running for re-election, so I won't chime in too much about the election date, but they go in, these two items more or less go hand in hand. We know that questions from the annual town meeting will have to move forward, or we think will move forward to the election ballot. So I guess we'll discuss the town meeting. I think the schools, as far as I know, the schools are still, Derek, do we have any update? Are they hopeful that they'll reopen in April, or is that really just wishful thinking? I mean,
schools per order of the governor have been
I'm sorry,
suspended.
May is what I meant to say.
Yeah, right now I think it's May 6th is the target date. But again, we'll learn more over the next 2 to 3 weeks whether or not that's a realistic target.
And Derek, do you have any feedback with other town managers, how other towns are handling this and what's the appropriate, is 30 days the right amount of time? Or at this point, do you suspend it with no end date? What do you recommend to us?
My recommendation to the board would be that the board takes a vote to suspend the May 7th town meeting to a date to be determined. I think it's too early to identify a specific date. We don't know how much longer this is going to go. So it may be not wise to choose a, say, June 7th date when we have to push it towards the end of June. So I think what's most important is that we notify the community that there will not be a May 7th meeting, but to stay tuned, and that will, as soon as we get a better sense of when this will all break, we'll then inform the public. It would be great, like we typically have done in the past, although the bylaw only requires us to execute the warrant 7 days in advance and post the warrant 7 days in advance. Since I've been here, we've been trying to at least have the warrant executed in the early part of April to try to give folks as much lead time as possible so they can have a chance to review the warrant. So I would still be in favor of that if we could try to give folks, at least 3, maybe 4 weeks lead time. That would be, I think that would be an ideal situation.
Okay.
And just so everybody knows, Kelly and I did speak with the moderator today, and he is in full support of delaying town meeting.
Okay. Maureen, Brett, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we clearly need to put it off. I understand the idea of a date that we determine later, and I totally agree with that. The thing I'm wondering is, do we owe it to people to sort of make some sort of commitment that says you'll have at least X amount of days notice or what have you? Because my fear is that if we just postpone it and don't tell anybody anything, that we're going to get questions from people like, oh, are we going to do it? Go ahead, Kelly.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I was waiting for you to finish that thought. So if you're going to vote to delay town meeting, I would hope you would also consider voting to delay town election. And the way the special legislation works for the town election is you can postpone it, delay it with a vote and not set the time, similar to the town meeting. But one thing that the legislation does do for town election is that you have to give at least, when you take the vote to set the date for the election, it has to be at least 20 days out. So you could almost, like, to your point, you could almost say, when we set the date for the election, we will do it the 20 days in advance for the town meeting as well.
Yeah, if we can match them, if that's easier to message, great, but that's perfect, right? Something that reassures people that we're not going to have a surprise meeting next Tuesday, which I know we wouldn't, but in another 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and they're not going to know about it or they're going to miss it. So just something that reassures people about that. But otherwise, totally agree with everything everyone said.
Yes.
And if I could comment again, Steve, there's been a lot of emails going on around the town clerks, and I think I've counted at least over 200 communities in the Commonwealth have voted to postpone their election and town meeting. So we're definitely not alone in this. It's probably closer to 250 to 275 that are doing this. So I highly recommend that we do the vote to that point, because it is 20 days. And we have to, at this point, we have to have the election by June 30th. Then the last date that you guys could take a vote to set the date of the town meeting and town election would be June 10th, just because it needs to be 20 days in advance.
Okay. Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying, Brett, is, a little more information is better than a little less. And then, as you said earlier, Maureen, if I'm kind of been looking at this saying, okay, if the peak days, if the top of the curve is between the 10th and the 20th, and that gives us perhaps maybe we've been probably about 5 weeks into this. So that means maybe on the other side of that, 5 weeks on the other side of that, life perhaps could be getting somewhat back to normal. Now, whether people will be comfortable enough to sit in an auditorium with 200 to 300 other people, that I don't know. But I guess just from a timeline, I know we're all just speculating. None of us are going to have these answers. But, from a timeline standpoint, is it feasible that we could, we should be able to get this done in June? Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, I'd like to believe that June would be a realistic date. Sometime in June. I don't know when in June, early June or late June. It's just too early to tell.
Right. And there's really nothing stating what the Kelly, by mass law or the new governor's laws, is there any time period between annual town meeting and the election that has to be enforced?
No. You can vote and you can decide when it's going to be, because our bylaws would no longer be in consideration. Because we have our town meeting and our town election according to our bylaws, but because of this special legislation, you can vote to change that. And just so you know, the day the nomination papers for the town election for candidates to withdraw their name is April 16th. So April 17th, 18th is when I will be going out and printing the ballots. So for anyone that's listening on this, the ballots hopefully I'll have by the end of April at the latest. And the special legislation allows for not only absentee balloting, but also early vote by mail. So as of the end of April, regardless of when we have the election, people can request a ballot from me, and those will be counted whatever day we have that election. So that's
is that still open? Oh, I'm sorry, that was absentee ballots you said? Absentee
and early voting ballots. Okay. So we can, as we publicize that everything has been delayed, we can let people know that they can still request a ballot and vote by mail without having to come in to the day, the day of the election. That's a little bit different than the town meeting, but ballots should be available for anyone that wants to vote by mail for the town election by the beginning of May at the latest.
And would that stay open for a period of time? Like I think it's usually, is it 2 weeks, Kelly?
Actually, requesting a ballot by mail, either early voting or absentee, the deadline is noon the business day before the election. So if we have the election, I'm just going to use the term, say it's June 3rd, by June 2nd at noontime, you would have to request a ballot by mail or come into the office to vote. So again, you have this, there will be plenty of opportunity because we will have the ballots available for people to come and vote. I know it's a little bit different than town meeting sitting in an auditorium with, 200 or 300 people, but at least for the town election, people will still be able to vote. And especially with the override on the ballot, I think it's important to publicize that out there.
Okay. Very good.
Kelly, may I ask Kelly a question?
Yes, go ahead, Sandra.
Just to clarify, Kelly, when you say request a ballot by mail, is that define mail? Can that be email?
No, it has to be, I have to mail them a ballot.
No, but for them to request you.
They can send me a request by email, but the ballot will be delivered to them by mail. And mail.
Right. Just wanted to clarify that so people knew. Thank you.
Okay.
Steve?
So Brett or Maureen, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I'm good with delaying it.
Okay, so we'll delay it with no date, of course. We don't know that as of yet, but maybe in the motion we could make mention of how many days advance notice that we plan on.
Steve?
Paul, go ahead. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, just Kelly can maybe clarify this if I'm wrong, but I looked at all that material that they put up last Friday, I believe it was, and they had indicated that if you don't get your town meeting done by June 30th, you can operate on a 1/12 budget going forward. But the other thing is that once the state of emergency is lifted, that you have to have your town meeting within 30 days of the date the town meeting, that the state of emergency is lifted.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the 30 days once the state of emergency is lifted, but I can double check on that figure. And I think we lost Brett, just so people know. I don't see him. Is he still on?
I don't
he's-
see him either.
He just came back.
I just bleeped out my camera because I was moving.
Oh.
There's a big button you can control whether your camera's on or not.
So, yeah, I'd have to double check, Paul, whether or not it's if it's 30 days after the state of emergency is lifted. But I would imagine that we would get some type of advance notice on that and know exactly when we would have to have that meeting.
This was in that 7 or 8 page bulletin that came out on Friday. I saw it in there.
Yeah, Department of Local Services. Yeah, I'd have to go back and
Yes.
double check it.
Yeah.
But I know the Department of Revenue is working on procedures that if towns do not have their meetings before the June 30th deadline, how they're going to handle spending for FY 2021.
Yeah, I did read that as well. I think it was in 2 different places. Definitely DLS, and I think KP sent it out as well.
Yep.
Regarding operating past July 1st, on that 1/12 budget. So hopefully it won't come to that, but we shall see. So, Maureen and Brett, I will take a motion.
I move that we suspend town meeting to a further date. Maureen Dwinell.
Did you want to include the election in that as well?
Oh, yeah. I move that we suspend the annual town meeting and annual town election to a further date. Maureen Dwinell.
Brett Simus, aye.
Steve Metellian, aye. Sandra, you can make that unanimous action. Okay. We have recognition. Does anybody have anything for recognition?
I would just like to thank Derek and Janice and the Men's Club and Upton Bloomer Girls and all the people that have been involved in this whole thing with the Neighbor to Neighbor. Great job.
I would echo those thoughts. Very good. Town manager's report. Derek?
Sure, okay. I'm just trying to see if I can, just gonna pull up something, but, so a couple of things. So we are still operating, even though all of our town offices are closed. Just a few updates relative to the DPW. Okay. Relative to the DPW, Dennis Westgate did report that you will all most likely see utility trucks in the Hopkinton Road High Street area this week and moving for the most part through the month of April. They are starting the TIP project. Their primary function at this time is to relocate some utility poles and also to do some tree work. He does not expect them to break ground until sometime in May, but that still remains to be seen. Relative to the Fowler Street Bridge project, we have, as we reported in the past, have selected a contractor. We're going to execute the notice to proceed effective May 1st, but we are expecting construction not to start until June. Some not so positive news. As you all know, the RFP committee worked very hard for the better part of 7 months to draft an RFP for downtown redevelopment and put out for sale the 2 properties owned by the town. That RFP was issued for 60 days and closed this past Friday, April 3rd. Unfortunately, there were no responses to the RFP. So I did communicate with the chair of the RFP committee. He, at some point, would be looking for further guidance from the Board of Selectmen. My recommendation right now is for myself and maybe working with the chair to do some fact finding as to why we didn't receive any responses to the RFP. We've done this in the past. We've issued RFPs or bids multiple times in the past, and typically what we found is that there's something we've done wrong. So when we reissue the RFP or the bid, sometimes it does bear some fruit, and we do get some responses. So we'll keep you abreast on that and let you know how that continues. One piece I haven't mentioned because we've been so busy focusing on our response to coronavirus was that the chief Chief Bradley, that is, held an assessment, a sergeant's assessment. He, as you know, has 2 vacancies. 2 of his sergeants retired, one in October, one in December of 2019. And 2 weeks ago, Chief Bradley appointed Detective Michael Benjamin to be a sergeant for the Upton Police Department. So we will have a pinning ceremony for Detective Benjamin. He's done a great job for the police department for many, many years, and this is certainly well deserving. So congratulations to him for that. But when things do break, hopefully this summer, we'd love to have Detective Benjamin in, actually Sergeant Benjamin now, have him in with his family so we can do a ceremonial pinning for him. And then as far as just a quick update on the COVID relief, I sent the board our weekly update just so it's a better way to stay connected. But what I have here is it's just a quick map CDC issued yesterday. And what you can see from here, these dark red spots are really the hot spots throughout the nation. And, as you can focus your energy on, and you already know this, but the Northeast area is probably one of the primary areas that coronavirus is hitting the worst. And as the president and others have talked about this week, at least in New York City, it's expected and projected to be the worst. They have stated that they're starting to see, although they're seeing an increase in the number of deaths. I believe there's 750 deaths today reported from yesterday, so an additional 750. That's not a cumulative total. So they're starting to see the death numbers climb, but at the same time, they're seeing new cases starting to flatten. So it's unfortunate that they have to continue to report on deaths, but on the positive side, they're starting to see the number of new cases starting to flatline, which is important. Last week, so in Massachusetts, when we had our meeting, I reported to the board, Massachusetts had approximately 6,600 cases of corona, with approximately 89 deaths. Today, unfortunately, I report that there's 15,000, a little north of 15,000 cases in Massachusetts with 356 deaths. So the death rate, that's a 400% increase in 7 days. So I'll say that again. So going from 89 deaths to 356 deaths in 7 days is a 400% increase. So certainly we have a long way to go before we start to see our curve starting to flatten. I don't have new information to report on the local level. Our town nurse is following prescriptive guidelines by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health and to not report on every case that is reported by the MDPH to the town. So I don't have any new information to report other than I can say that we do know that we have cases in town. We do know that there's widespread transmission throughout Massachusetts, and so we will continue to educate folks and encourage them to stay at home when necessary and only go outside when it's absolutely essential. The departments and the boards continue to work from home for the most part. Many of us still go to town hall to provide those essential services. The police department and the fire department both have reported that they're seeing a trend downward in the calls for service. So that's positive, that they're not getting as many calls for service as they would have in the past. And so for the most part, everything else is business as usual. Just trying, I think the biggest challenge for all of us across the various departments is really just trying to maintain situational awareness on the presidential directives that come down on a daily basis, the governor's orders that come down on a daily basis. It's just a lot of information to consume, and then try to ensure that we're implementing those measures. The numerous policies around the Family Relief Act and how we manage our personnel, how we handle our personnel, has taken a lot of time out of Sandy's days just to try to consume all that and then process that for our staff. So a lot of work, a lot of strong work from everybody working for the department, just trying to react and respond to what hopefully won't last for much longer. I will hold any comments for questions.
Brett or Maureen, do you have any questions for Derek?
Not at this time.
Just one question that came up over the past, actually just earlier today. Someone asked me and I suggested they talk to the Board of Health directly, but just so you know, Derek, in case it comes up through your channels, some people were asking questions about the yellow trash bags, and their concern was that the country super seemed to be very crowded and that there was a line out the door and people weren't social distancing, which is obviously that's not our issue to try to manage. People need to manage that themselves, and I would encourage them to do so. But the point that this citizen was making was, I'm having to go to that spot. So is there any thought to doing bag deliveries or setting up some sort of, program where we either forego the yellow bags or we deliver the yellow bags or anything along those lines? I told them I hadn't thought of it, I hadn't heard of it, but that we would pass the information along to the Board of Health to consider. And of course, I did offer to them that if anybody needs yellow bags, I'm happy to deliver them, which is true.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. We have received similar calls at Town Hall, and as you just suggested, we do direct those inquiries to the Board of Health. Diane from the Board of Health office, did report today that the Board of Health has stated that they are going to continue to require yellow bags at this time, and so that's their policy decision at this time. I love the idea of maybe there's something we can implement to try to deliver those bags to those individuals that find going out of their home at risk, much like we're doing, like the Men's Club is doing for grocery shopping for certain individuals. So I think that's a great idea, and we'll be happy to explore that a little bit further.
I'm not sure, how many other locations are the bags being sold at? Is it Honey Farms as well, or just Gasco?
I know Honey Farms and the Country Super. I'm not sure if there are any others.
I think Gasco, and I think the liquor store.
Okay. Very good. Anybody have anything else? I do see that there's some new regulations. I think the governor's and Mayor Walsh was talking about it, where they're recommending people now wear masks when they're grocery shopping or masks when they're in contact with other people. Gloves as well. So the social distancing is obviously, it's uncomforting for a lot of people, but it certainly appears to be working. So that's all good news. Okay, for look ahead topics, we have pretty much the same ones we've had floating around. Town Hall use policy, discuss Fire EMS Advisory Committee, senior tax relief policy, discuss letter of request for all boards meeting, discussion on balances and expenditures of trust funds, Men's Club funding request for the fireworks festival, cemetery commissioners, and police sergeant pinning ceremony, which Derek, you had talked about that earlier. I don't have anything else. If anybody have anything else they'd like to add? Otherwise, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn. Maureen Dwinell.
Second, Brett Simus.
Steve Metelli and I. Thank you, everyone. That seemed to be a pretty smooth meeting.